Hello, this is Pastor Rick, and I want to welcome you to this Table Talk edition of the Sunday Forum, where we want to lift up a very important theme on this Sunday, and that is Christians in Gaza. Now, I want to focus in on Christians in Gaza because, well, nobody's talking about this in our TVs, in our newsreels. When you look online, there's so much happening in this Israel-Hamas war. People are talking about so many topics, and they're all important. But we're not going to talk about, for example, the terrorist attacks from Hamas against Israel in October. We're not going to talk about that here. It's important, but the news is covering that well. And we're not going to cover all the bombing of Israel against this strip of land where there are 2 million people, the Gaza Strip. As brutal and horrifying as it is to see those images each and every night, even now where 21 hospitals have been closed and the others are practically dysfunctional because of energy, we see that, but the news again is covering that violence and the bombing and the war in Gaza quite well. However, as I've seen these newsreels, I've asked myself the question, well, how about the Christians in Gaza? What is happening to them? And there you almost find no reports whatsoever. So we just want to lift them up because they are trying to witness to Jesus Christ in some of the most difficult situations for any Christians. But let's first start with some statistics. There are about 50,000 Christians in Gaza and in the West Bank. They're Palestinians, of course. And as Lutherans, we're there, as well as Anglicans and Baptists and Greek Orthodox and Roman Catholics. All told, these is a small percentage of those who live, the Palestinians, in these two places, the West Bank and in Gaza. What happened in 1948 is over 700,000 Palestinians were displaced as the State of Israel was created. And so they were sent to refugee areas. And many of them left this area of Israel-Palestine to go and live other places. And that was particularly true of Christians. Christians, by and large, to this day in Palestine are well educated. They're successful business people. They have made a name for themselves in nonprofits, which means often they can emigrate. They can leave. They can go other places, just as we have Hader al-Yatim, Palestinian Christian, who is the associate bishop here in the Florida Bahamas Synod. But right now, there might be as many as 1 million Palestinians who are expatriates in other places in the world, which would mean, if correct, it's about 5, 6, 7% of all Palestinians still live back in the homeland in Palestine, Israel-Palestine. And about 1 to 2.5% of these Palestinians are Christian in the West Bank, and about 1% are Christians in Gaza. That's not many. In 2007, not that long ago, there were just 3,000 Christians in Gaza. Today, there's only 1,000 because the pressure on Christians from all sides is great. And because of that pressure, many just leave and try to make a life for themselves in other places around the world. Now, this whole story about Christians in Gaza has come to light, especially in the last couple weeks, for a couple reasons. First is the bombing of 2 hospitals run by Christians. The one hospital is run by the Anglican Church, and the other is run by the YMCA. And normally, with the rules of war, you don't touch hospitals. But sometimes this residual damage happens, and it's been quite a tragedy. But also a church, the Church of St. Porphyrius, was also bombed. And it is the oldest church in Israel-Palestine. It was started in the 5th century. The Persian conquest of the 7th century took it over and turned it into a mosque. And then in the 12th century with the Crusades, they came in and took it back and made it a church again. So this church goes back almost to the beginning. But remember, for the Gazan Christians, their history goes back to Philip, Saint Philip in Acts chapter 8. Remember, Philip is on his way from Jerusalem to Gaza. He meets the Ethiopian eunuch. He converts. And there they say the Christian church on that trip began in the Gaza Strip. Now, Saint Porphyrius, this was a saint because he was the bishop in the 5th century, and he converted the whole pagan town to Christianity. And so this history, this lineage of witnessing to Jesus Christ right from the beginning, but also starting in the 5th century in Gaza, where it became such a powerful witness and a successful one, where a large church was built up. This has been quite a legacy that these Gazan Christians have inherited. Now, I should say the AP, the Associated Press, first said that this was a false report when the church was first reported bombed, and came back 5 days later and said, yes, the first report wasn't accurate, but the second report is, because they were bombed 5 days after the other report. So all the Christians that moved out to a Baptist church just 400 meters away, and they invited their neighbors, Palestinian neighbors, to join them so that Muslims and Christians could hunker down in this church and try to stay safe. So here we have these 50,000 Christians in Gaza and the West Bank, down to 1,000 in Gaza, who call themselves living stones. Part of the witness to Jesus Christ going back 2,000 years. And so when you ask them, well, why don't you leave the land? They say, absolutely not. This is a divine mandate that we've been given to stay put, to stay in the land, to maintain the witness to Jesus Christ that was passed down to from our fathers, from our grandfathers, all the way back to the beginning of the apostles. And so our plea is just to lift them up and to remember them on this day. When the church was bombed just a few days ago, we heard from its bishop, Gabriele Romanelli. He was trapped in Bethlehem, which was interesting because Palestinians, when you live in the Gaza Strip, is considered the largest open-air prison in the world. They can't leave. The Muslims can't go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque to say prayers, and the Christians are not allowed to go to Bethlehem to pray either. But the bishop of this church is a foreigner, so he's allowed to travel, and when he went to Bethlehem, he was not allowed to come back. And so we remember then the words of this bishop, Gabriele Romanelli. He says, please let the Israelis know, and please let the world know, that these are ordinary Christian people who have been bombed out of their homes and now out of their church, and now who are gathered together with other Palestinians in this Baptist church. Just let them know they're ordinary people and they pose no danger to anyone. In addition to his request, we pass on that word, but we also pray for our brothers and sisters in Christ who are suffering in Palestine and in Israel at this time. May God bless them and give them the courage to continue a 2,000-year-old legacy of witnessing to Jesus Christ. Thanks for joining us on the Sunday Forum. Bye-bye now.